$100 or more and get a free 20-pound or less frozen turkey while supplies last. That was the promotion our store ran every Thanksgiving for the last 17 years. Well, for as long as I've been here, that is. But not this year. This year, we're not running a promotion. I really can't blame them after what happened last year. Let me tell you what happened. First off, my name's Jim, I'm the meat manager here at BuBBleBuss. I saw it the whole thing. It was 2 days before Thanksgiving, I was working the morning shift like I always do. It was around 11 o'clock, I'd say. We just received our truck, but unfortunately, the turkeys we ordered were out of stock from the warehouse. For those of you that don't know what that means, it means the warehouse didn't have any to send us. Shit, this isn't good. I said to myself. I went to the case to see how many we actually had left. All we had was one lone turkey. Fuck, then it happened. From opposite ends of the aisle came 2 women. One, an older Asian woman, and 2, a younger blonde, Barbie wannabe. They both arrived at this case at the same time. I informed them that this was the last turkey we had due to the warehouse issue. Their eyes widened with fear and shock as they both turned to the freezer case door. The Asian woman grabbed the door and flung it open, hitting Barbie in the face and knocking her back. Barbie screamed like some kind of demon, charged and grabbed Asian by the hair, spinning her around and slamming her head first into the adjacent glass freezer case door, nearly missing a small child that stood with her mother in the aisle. She grabbed her kid and ran. Now, BuBBleBuss is a very old store, we still have actual glass freezer doors. Anyway, a few seconds went by and Asian crawled out of the case and turned. Pieces of glass were stuck in her face, arms and her neck, she was bleeding like a pig. She pulled a rather large piece of glass from her neck, holding it in her hand, blood dripping. She tried covering the wound with her other hand, but blood was just gushing out from between her fingers. I swear to God, I almost puked all over myself. Anyway, she screamed and charged Barbie as she was lifting the turkey out of the case. She drove that piece of glass directly into Barbie's heart, knocking back against the freezer case door. Barbie coughed up blood and spewed it right in Asian's face as she screamed in pain. Then, in slow motion, both fell to the floor. As well as the turkey, which rolled halfway down the aisle. Blood everywhere. People screaming and running. One guy tried to jump over them but slipped in the blood and face planted right into an abandoned shopping cart. I'm sorry, but that shit was funny. He was okay though. He got up and staggered away. We are trained not to interfere with robbers, shoplifters, and even fights such as this. So I just stood there. I guess one of the customers who wasn't videotaping on their phones or a manager or someone called the cops. They showed up and closed the store down. The paramedics showed up, did their thing, as the employees, including myself, moved any customers up to the front for checkout. As I was walking back through the store to make sure there were no more customers, I saw the paramedics covering the bodies with white sheets. They died, right there, in aisle 12. I saw the turkey still laying there on the floor, still frozen. I picked it up, as I needed one myself, take it to the front, paid for it, gave the cops my statement, and brought it home to my family. My wife cooked it up and we had an amazing Thanksgiving dinner. The best part was the turkey though. Yeah, that thing was to die for. I would like to share with you an experience I had about 10 years ago, give or take. I learned several years after this incident, what happened to me is what doctors call sleep paralysis. I say they're full of shit. It really happened. I do not use drugs outside of caffeine and nicotine. I do not drink alcohol of any sort. So, this was not a hallucination caused by either of the two. Nor do I have any mental issues that I know of. Let's make that clear. Going back about a year before this incident, at that time, I was really into ghost hunting shows. I watched and recorded any and every show I could find that was about a team of ghost hunters investigating haunted places. Some were really good, and others just sucked. No disrespect, I remember watching an episode of. Wait, in order to post on here I can't use any real names, places, or addresses. Okay, let's see if I can do this. I remember watching the show, where the lead hunter guy is a muscle-bound jerk who don't like bullies, but, in turn, is one himself. He orders his crew around like he owns them, and they follow him blindly like sleep. I think you know the one, it's a good show, at least it used to be. Anyway, they were investigating, oh shit. Here we go again. They were investigating a bar owned by an old country singer, located in one of the southern states, who wrote a semi-popular song about a girl. Everyone in the paranormal community says this place is truly haunted. Okay, now that's over with. Back to the story. They were down in the basement. I think it's been a while since I seen it, and to this day, is the only episode of that show I will never watch again. They were talking with some guy about what goes on there, when up in the left top corner of the screen, there appeared a shadow figure wearing a cowboy hat standing in the doorway. At this time in the show they stopped the film and pointed out that, when they were actually down there, they didn't see this figure and only discovered it while reviewing the footage. I was naive back then and didn't really know much about the paranormal. I figured it's a TV show, what harm could it really do? Boy, was I wrong. I now know that ghosts, entities, or whatever you want to call them can follow you home from places and are made up of energy and can travel through any energy source they want and wanted. Now that I've given you the backstory to this story, let's proceed with the reason I'm actually writing this. Many years before this incident, an old friend of mine, back when I was 11 or 12, who I met through playing baseball in the same team, anyway, he had recently bought a house and was looking for someone to just give his old trailer mobile home to. Which is where this incident happened. We had lost contact over the years, but unknown to me, he had kept in contact with my father. My father gave him my number, he called me up and made me an offer I couldn't refuse. A free trailer, just pay a lot rent. Oh hell yeah, I'll take it. The trailer was old and needed work. But it was a good deal. I moved in, did some minor repairs, and couple weeks after that, I invited my father and stepmother over for dinner. My stepmother is what she calls an old soul. She can sense when things are not right with universe. She took one look at the place and said, "There's bad juju here. I don't like it." Every time she came to visit, she was nervous, she wouldn't sit still, always looking down the hallway. She eventually stopped coming. She said it was too thick for her. Whatever that meant. I just thought she was nuts. I now know she's not. I lived there for many years, had some strange things happen. Seeing apparitions out of the corner of my eye, voices, cold breezes, etc. I just chalked it up to bad lighting, outside noises, insulation issues. Some rational explanation until that night. The night that changed my whole belief systems forever. The night I will never forget. I was laying in bed, asleep on my back, like I always do, when I woke up and noticed a black figure standing in the doorway of my bedroom. The hallway light was on. I always leave it on, in case I need to make a bathroom run late at night. The light from behind the figure showed it had a head, 2 arms and 2 legs, but no eyes. It was just standing there. I blinked a couple times to make sure I was seeing what I was seeing, and sure enough I was. Only this time, when I looked at it, it was wearing a cowboy hat. The moment I realized that, I physically saw it jump from the standing position in the doorway over top of the bed and land on top of me. My body became stiff, unable to move. Out of my peripheral vision, I could see my wife lying next to me. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. I saw the figure sitting on top of me. It reached its hands down into my chest and started squeezing my lungs. I couldn't breathe. It was squeezing the life right out of me. There I was, gasping for air, paralyzed and unable to make a sound. Just when I thought I was about to die, a series of intensely bright white lights started flashing all around the room, like a strobe light on steroids. I closed my eyes to shield them from the lights, it was that bright. All of a sudden, my body jerked a couple times like a convulsion and then stopped. I opened my eyes and it was gone. I was able to breathe again. I lied there, heavy breathing for a good 20 minutes, too scared to move. When I finally got the nerve to try, I slowly moved my right hand over to my nightstand. Still shaking from fear, I grabbed my phone to check the time. Like I always do when I wake up in the middle of the night. The time was 3:48 a.m. The witching hour. Needless to say, I did not go back to sleep that night. I cautiously got out of bed so not to wake up my wife and turned on every light in the house. Every single one, including all the bedroom lights. How my wife stayed sleeping, I don't know, but thankfully she did. I made a pot of coffee, grabbed my Bible and sat at the dining room table, drinking coffee, Bible in hand until the morning came. I must have smoked at least a pack and a half of cigarettes in that 3-hour span of time. I'm good with that, I'm still alive. I asked my wife if she had seen or heard anything strange the night before. She said no, and I left it at that. I didn't tell her what had happened, and I still haven't. She probably wouldn't believe me anyway. My wife and I stayed at the trailer for about 2 months after that. When we got the opportunity to rent an actual house, we took it. We packed all our things and moved out. On the last day we were ever at that trailer, my wife had left the vacuum in the back bedroom where this experience happened. She asked if I would go get said vacuum and I agreed. Upon entering the room, a weird sense of dread fell over me and something inside of me told me I needed to get out of there quick. I grabbed the vacuum, ran down the hallway and out the front door as fast as I could, slamming the door behind me. I then turned around and yelled, "You want this place? You can have it, I'm gone." My wife looked at me like I lost my mind. My father and stepmother helped us move, along with some friends. My stepmother insisted that we drive all the vehicles that contained our belongings over bodies of water to block any of the bad juju from coming with us to the new house. We did and have had no bad experiences in our new house. Aside from a few really bad dreams I had the first couple nights we were there about the trailer, but that was it. Well, that's my story. I don't really care if you believe me or not. I know for a fact it really happened. Just to start off, I am not a writer. So I'm sorry if I made any grammar mistakes or if something doesn't make sense. I know I can be a little jumpy with details sometimes. I hope you can enjoy and please be respectful. Now I guess onto my story. I am a 19-year-old female and at the time that all of this happened to me I was 17. So just to give some long and necessary background. I was still dating a guy named Kyle. That's not his real name, but go with it, we shared a small group of friends. We were all pretty close to each other. We did almost everything together. Especially when it involved smoking weed and doing other harder substances. They were pretty chill and trustworthy friends, or so I thought. Anyways, one day 2 weeks before my junior year started, I was hanging out with a group at one of their houses and I just so happened to fall asleep after a while of being there. I woke up probably 5 minutes later to one of my friends touching my inner thigh. Just a note, I was the only female in the group and my boyfriend wasn't there when this occurred. He was at show choir practice. So he couldn't have been there even if he wanted to. When the friend touching me noticed I woke up, he immediately stopped and I ran into the bathroom crying. I've been raped and sexually assaulted before. So just going through it again isn't the greatest feeling. A few minutes passed by and I left the bathroom. I pulled one of my friends aside and told him what happened. His response shocked me. He said he saw what happened, but he didn't stop him. I don't know why he didn't, and I guess I'll never know. But that same friend told me not to tell Kyle because he didn't want any friendships ruined. Well, I obviously told Kyle after show choir practice and he was understandably pissed off. We've come to the agreement that we will no longer be friends with them anymore. A few days went by still avoiding the group and we would receive a lot of messages from them, but they were shocking and hurtful messages saying I'm being overdramatic, that it's my fault that it happened. Just act like nothing ever happened, he didn't really sexually assault me and so on. I was pretty destroyed reading all those messages coming from those so-called friends, but for some stupid reason. We all became friends again when school started. I know what you're thinking. Why would we go back to that shitty group of friends? I guess our only lame excuse is that we hate confrontation and we wanted things to go back to normal. I wanted to feel normal again. Well, obviously it wasn't the best idea taking back those friends, especially the one who touched me. Because it started to really affect me mentally. I became super depressed. I developed really bad trust issues with everyone, including my boyfriend. I would constantly have panic attacks throughout the day. I started self-harming again. I was extremely suicidal and I was failing all of my classes because I rarely showed up to school. The school attendants and staff had no idea what was wrong with me. I would refuse to tell them and my family. But one day came around and I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told my family and at first they were supportive, but then it quickly changed. I don't really want to go into the details, but for a long time I felt so alone. Later on, around November 2017, my boyfriend did something behind my back with another girl. He didn't cheat on me, he just sold some weed to her. But for some odd reason I mentally got worse. I just didn't know how to cope with anything that was happening to me. I started mentally abusing my boyfriend. Like extremely bad to where he hated himself, and I think at some point he even became suicidal. Deep down it made me happy. I wanted someone to feel pain too. But it got so bad to where we broke up twice, but then got back together the same day each time. Now fast forward to around February 2018. One night, that's when it had happened. I was having trouble sleeping and it was getting late. I also had school the next morning, so I was getting pretty frustrated. Finally around 1 AM I started dozing off. I found myself awake probably about 10 to 15 minutes later. I noticed a tall dark figure standing across the room in my closet. At first, I thought it was my older brother messing with me because he's done stuff like this before. But as I tried to say his name, I couldn't. That's when I realized I couldn't speak, couldn't move, I was paralyzed. So as I'm staring at this figure in my closet wondering what the fuck is happening, the figure starts moving closer to me. Then I noticed it kind of looks like it was floating towards me. I can feel myself panicking, but I couldn't move or say anything. So when the tall dark figure reached the side of my bed, I kid you not, it bent over and grabbed my nose. Now I couldn't breathe through my nose or mouth. I'm just staring at this dark figure. Its face was so close to mine, but I couldn't make out any features. I can feel my heart trying to break out of my chest. My lungs are hurting like hell because I couldn't breathe. I legitimately thought I was going to die, but suddenly I quickly sat up, gasping for air, looking around my room for that figure, but it wasn't there. I was scared. I was so scared. I didn't know what just happened. I thought I just had the most realistic nightmare of my life. I mean, I guess that's kind of what happened. The next morning when my boyfriend picked me up for school, I told him about the realistic nightmare. He said that's creepy, and that was that. A few weeks later I brought it up to my older brother, and that's when he told me that I actually had sleep paralysis. I had no clue what sleep paralysis is, but after hearing his definition of it and doing some research, I was really freaked out. I read online that stress, anxiety, depression, sleep problems, and some other things can cause sleep paralysis. I realized that everything that had happened to me sort of recently played a big part in my sleep paralysis episode that night. I would be lying if I said I didn't have trouble sleeping for a while after that, but I eventually got over it. But every now and then, I do get a little nervous to go to sleep. Fast forward to now, 2020. Kyle and I are doing really well. Better than ever. We are renting our own apartment. We have 2 cats, and they are absolutely amazing. Our 3-year anniversary is next month, and we are extremely excited. On another note, September 22, 2019 I was diagnosed with extreme depression and anxiety disorder, but I now go to therapy and take medications to help with that. I have never felt better and happier. Oh, and in case you were wondering, we are no longer hanging with those shit friends anymore. This isn't exactly a horrifying story, so don't get too disappointed if you're not terrified. For background, I'm a 15-year-old Irish fella called Ross. I go to school in Ireland. I am now in 3rd year. At the start of 2nd year a new fella joined the school. I was in charge of showing him around, and we've been good friends ever since. He is Portuguese and his name is Tiago. I'll call him Tig for this story. His school bag is a fairly small, bright red bag. He is a bit shorter than me. His hair is quite short and brown in color. This will become important momentarily. One day I was upstairs in my school. It was break time, and I was going to my group's usual spot. I turned a corner and saw Tig walking along the hallway. This was weird because, at the distance I was from him, I would have seen him come up the stairs. I didn't think much of it at the time. I sped up to catch up to him. There was another corner coming up. He rounded it and I followed suit. Except, he wasn't there. There was a staircase going back down and 2 bathrooms, one for lad and one for lassies, but no Tig. Considering how close I was behind him, he would have had to sprint towards and then jump down the stairs or jog into the bathroom. If he went for the stairs, I would have heard. He must be in the bathroom, I thought. I sat at the bench and waited. Tig was the first other person in our group to arrive. He rounded the corner and left his bag down. The realization hit him hard, he wasn't in the bathroom. I asked him if he had already been up there, to which he answered that he hadn't. He had no reason to lie. Now, I know what you're all thinking. It was someone else. First of all, the person I saw looked the exact same as my friend from the back. Second of all, no one else in the school has that bag, to my knowledge. I haven't seen anyone else with it, that is. Third, the only place the person could have gone, without sprinting down the stairs, which I would probably catch a glimpse of anyway, would be the bathroom. No one came out of the bathroom that I didn't see enter it. Finally, my friend is a fairly distinct character. Not many people have the same body build as him. Like I said at the start, it's not exactly terrifying, but I do believe it to be due to a glitch in the Matrix. Okay guys, I have had to post this story 3 times now, hopefully this time I will get it right. I am pretty new to posting stories, but here it goes. To start off, this isn't my story, but rather one that my dad told me about my Uncle Edward. My Uncle Edward died from pneumonia back in 2014. I was born but was too young to remember anything about my Uncle Edward except for the sight of his lifeless body laying in his casket. The sight is burned into my mind. Later on, my dad, my uncle's brother, told me that my uncle was an alcoholic and drug addict. My uncle's addiction caused him to lie and steal from my dad and other members of my family. My dad had told me stories about my Uncle Edward, some good, some bad. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most scariest stories I've ever heard regarding my uncle. This took place at some point in the late 90s before I was born. My uncle and dad were living with my nonna. At the time, my dad noticed the windows on his Ford Escort were shattered. Suspecting my uncle had something to do with it, my dad confronted him about it. My uncle lied and said that kids were responsible. My dad knew that was a load of crap, so he gave my uncle a good beating until he told the truth. The truth is that my uncle didn't have a car, so he stole my dad's car to go meet with some drug dealers. My uncle owed the dealers money but didn't have any. My uncle drove off, but the dealers shot at the car intending to kill him. The police were never called. My uncle was lucky that time, but later on my uncle's addiction was taking a toll on his health and later developed pneumonia. The years of drug abuse weakened his body and was unable to fight the pneumonia and ultimately died. It is a very hard thing to live with the fact that I never got to know my uncle due to drugs. Oh yeah, and to those drug dealers who tried to kill my uncle, I hope you sickos rot in jail where you belong. I was 16 and me and my friends, I'll call Evan and Jake, wanted to rent a hotel for the night since it was spring break. We got to the hotel and checked in. It had a really funky smell, but we still stayed there. Once we got to our room it was about 3 p.m, so we decided to go swimming. The pool was downstairs departed from the hotel. Once we got to the entrance there was a man at least 6'3" in all black with a hood covering his face, facing us. I panicked a little, but not out loud. We got into the pool and swam for a few hours until we saw that man again, all black sitting on a chair by the pool. I cleared my throat. Can I help you, sir? I asked. No response. I still was a little paranoid. I put my face in the water and at the bottom of the pool was another figure that was all black. I screamed like a little girl and ran for the door. I looked back and saw nothing, not the guy in the chair or the guy under the pool. My friends thought I was just seeing things, but I saw what I saw as clear as water. I didn't feel like swimming anymore, so I decided to get dinner at a nearby restaurant. I got a table for me and my friends to sit at, and there I saw once again the man all in black on the other side of the dining room and was staring at me. I have had enough. I went over there and I lost track of him and he took off. After we had I decided this trip has gone too far and we should leave tomorrow morning, but my friends didn't like that idea. Once it was 10:30, I and my friends dozed off in the hotel room. I woke up to some noises. I saw a shadow of a figure at the end of my bed. I calmed myself down and told myself that it was my hat that I put there before I went to bed. I went to bed and got woken up again 30 minutes later to more noises. I was getting thirsty, so I reached under the bed and tried to grab my water bottle, but I grabbed something and I was totally shocked by what I grabbed. It was my hat. I was not ever more scared in my life. I couldn't help but to scream at the top of my lungs when I heard a voice next to my ear say, "You're a bitch." I jumped out of bed and realized it was two men in black right there. I tried to fight them, but it was no use once they grabbed me and dragged me out of that room. I tried to scream, but that guy was covering my mouth. I passed out and woken up in a stretcher. It turned out those guys knifed me while I passed out and someone caught them. But the doctor said no one could catch the guys who got me. To this day I always have a nightlight at night, so I'm not scared. This is a true story. The summer before I started high school, about 35 years ago. Yeah, I'm that old. I spent a lot of time with my best and only friend, Jack. You see, I was, and for most part still am, a nerd. I, now, have embraced my nerdness and don't really give a shit what anybody thinks. But back then, I was quiet, shy, unattractive, antisocial with very low self-esteem. I had big military-issued, thick black-framed birth control glasses that screamed nerd right from the door. My father was in the Navy, so they were free. No disrespect to our members of the armed forces. Now, I have wireframes. I first met Jack at the roller rink one Saturday afternoon. One of the rare occasions I actually went out in public. He was an experienced skater. I, at the time, was not. I later learned how to skate with Jack's help and became pretty good at it. Anyway, I made the mistake of cutting in front of him and he just plowed right over me. I hit the floor hard. Jack stopped and helped me up and we've been friends ever since. Jack wasn't a nerd by any means. He was just quirky and awkward. This made him socially unacceptable to the beautiful people and he seemed to be just fine with it. His acceptance of who he was helped me accept who I was. Anyway, Jack and I spent a lot of time together that summer. We would hang out at the mall, checking out girls, go roller skating, sneak into the drive-in. I also spent the night at his house, a lot. His parents were cool with it, so were mine, so why not? So, this one night in particular, Jack and I were just hanging out, eating pizza, listening to music. 80s hair metal, of course, and playing Atari. Asteroids to be exact. I really miss Atari. Anyway, it was sometime after midnight when I decided to stop playing and go to sleep. Jack had already fallen asleep about a half hour earlier. So, I turned off the game, turned off the TV and lay down to sleep. At some point, I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I remember was what I assumed was waking up and having to use the bathroom really bad. So I got up, crossed the hallway, into the bathroom and took care of my business, washed my hands, and went to leave the bathroom. Then it happened. As I was about to leave the bathroom, I looked into the mirror, which was right beside the door, and saw a black figure, just a torso, where my reflection should have been. The figure then slowly slid down to the bottom of the mirror and disappeared. Now, I was looking into a mirror with no reflection, just the wall behind me. Suddenly, I woke up again, same spot as before, again having to use the bathroom. I got up again and the same scenario played out. This happened about 6 or 7 more times. Finally, I woke up for real. Seeing Jack sitting there, eating a bowl of cereal. I turned to him and said, "Dude, I had the most fucked up dream." "Let me guess, you went into the bathroom and saw a black figure sliding down the mirror over and over again," he replied. I said, "Yeah, how do you know?" He said, "Dude, I had the same dream."